Hey guys, before this episode starts, I want to talk about some pretty cool news. Okie Investigations now has its own website. It's truecrime.blog, and it is a running blog for crime stories and for this show. So if you're a true crime buff and you want to see some cool things that we gathered while researching each show, including a timeline of events that we put together, newspaper clippings, court documents, and much, much more. Come check us out at truecrime.blog.
1, 2, 3,
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Okie Investigations. In this episode, we're going to discuss the cannibal who killed and ate his father in Midwest City, Oklahoma. This was in 1977, which was actually a pivotal year for Oklahoma's darker history. But this remains one of the most shocking crimes in Oklahoma's history. In this episode, we'll discuss what happened, why, and what's happened since. But first, if you're a first-time listener, to experience this podcast to its finest, hit that subscribe button. So when we have new episodes, you will be the first to know. Then you can head on over to our Facebook page. Here we can discuss the case together, and perhaps come with our own theories on the many cases that will be featured on this show. You can find us at facebook.com/Okie Investigations. This has been a pretty good week for me. We're on episode 3, guys. It's pretty amazing. I'm having a lot of fun doing this show. I want to say thank you for everyone that's left comments that have said such nice things about the show. We've gotten a few messages from people that want us to look into other cases. That's amazing. That's that's going to be on our agenda, definitely. If you have anything you want us to look into, or if you have any stories or anything that you think that should be told, head on over to our Facebook page. Definitely let me know. You can send me a message, or you can just post on there. That's fine. I stumbled upon this case reading about different cases in Oklahoma's history. A lot of these have really kind of captivated me and really kind of pulled me in. So looking into these has been quite a bit of fun. This case in particular was pretty interesting because this is a little bit out of the norm for Oklahoma. There's not a lot of cannibalistic history here in Oklahoma, so this was pretty interesting. Police officers are trained to be ever vigilant. They have to be, because anything can seriously happen to a police officer. They can stumble upon something, they can pull over the wrong person at the wrong time, and just about anything can happen at any given time. Now, in May of 1977, police were asked to do a welfare check on Theodore Canatis. The responding officers at the scene were Steve Taylor and Phil Anderson. The little information that they knew at the time was that Theodore hadn't been seen in some time since earlier that week, and they knew that his son was a former mental patient. So I guess they were just kind of worried and just wanted to check in on him, make sure he's okay. So the officers responded, and they got to it was a townhouse, a little 2-story townhouse. So they get up to the front door, they're knocking, there's no answer. Being that it's a welfare check, they're going to maybe peek in some windows, walk around, see what they can do. And they walk around to the back of the building, and they notice that an upstairs window on the second floor, it's got curtains blown through. It's open, you can see the curtains kind of breezing through. So they decide that they're going to maybe take a peek and go in that way and make sure everything's okay. So the officers go over and they pick up a nearby picnic table. They position it underneath the open upstairs window. Then, so they made sure that they could reach. They got a large brick block that was described as it was probably a center block. So they put that on the table. Then Officer Taylor helped Officer Anderson up into the window, and then vice versa. Anderson helped Taylor get up. He pulled him up through the window. So it was almost immediately clear that they had stumbled into something pretty grisly. The officers had reported that There was blood just all over the apartment. They were in a bedroom, I believe, that they pulled themselves up into, and there's just blood all over the dresser. There was blood in the hall. They said they saw the bathroom. At this time, they weren't sure if they were alone in this place, so they had, drew their weapons. They said by the time they reached the bathroom, they knew this was a murder scene. This was not an accident. This was deliberate. At the time, the officers actually reported that they were whispering to each other that they pretty much thought that they had a dissected body on their hands, that somebody was dismembered in that bathroom. Now, the officers then proceeded to go downstairs. There was a spiral metal staircase in the house, so they go downstairs, and that's when they find the kitchen. The officers reported seeing a skillet on the stove that had some meat in it. They proceeded to open the refrigerator. In the fridge, they found a bunch of unpacked meat. Then they opened the freezer, where they were shocked to find a pair of clutching hands. Officer Taylor was quoted at the time of saying, "I used to work in a mortuary. I've never seen flesh like that before." Pretty crazy scene at that point. The officers then exited the townhouse. They knew that there was nobody in there, that whoever it was that was there is now gone. And so at this point, the officers know that there's nobody in here, so they decide they're going to exit the scene. And they step outside the apartment. They radio for help. What a crazy and grisly way to kind of find yourself in this whole scene. Now, at this point, the police are fairly certain that the meat that they found in the refrigerator and all that is human remains. And they're under the assumption that it's Theodore, and that his son Gregory has probably done something. So at this point, Gregory is missing. Nobody has really seen him. The only person that's seen him last was the neighbor that initially made the report, and that was because he saw Gregory outside dumping meat into the dumpster. Well, now officers believe that when they were knocking on the front door, Gregory was still in the apartment, and he actually escaped through that upstairs window. That's why it was probably open. The officers stated that if they just maybe went around the house the other direction, they might have ran into Gregory. They might have been able to take him into custody at that point. But as just circumstances happened, they went the other direction, and they did not see Gregory escaping. One of the things that's often never noted is maybe the officer's mental state after coming upon a scene like this. And the paper that I have been looking at, the Daily Oklahoman, did a great article on this when all of this was first coming to light. And they actually noted that the Officer Taylor was visibly shaken by what they had found, almost stuttering when he was reciting what they had found at the scene. Now, a lot of people don't think about what police officers go through day to day. It really takes someone with a really strong mind to be a police officer and to continue doing a job where you see stuff like this at any given moment. Can you imagine working a job where your job is to respond only to accidents? There are officers that do that. They identify fatal accidents. They deal with people that are mangled in cars. That kind of stuff is just, that would wear on you over time. And so stuff like this probably stuck with these officers a long, long time, probably for the rest of their lives. Now, later that night, Gregory, the victim's son, was found asleep outside. And so he was found by neighbors. The neighbors called the police. The police came in. They picked him up. By all accounts that I've seen is that Gregory was pretty open about what happened, unapologetic, seemingly mentally unstable. Gregory openly confessed to what he had done, but it was obvious that he could probably go the insanity route when it came to the trial, if there was a trial. So, as a way to not waste the taxpayers' money by bringing a case that could probably be ended by a psychiatric evaluation, the judge decided to order that Gregory's mental state be evaluated. So they sent him to the psychiatric hospital in Norman, Oklahoma. I believe they kept him for 60 days, and it was their determination that there was just no way this man could stand trial. He was not mentally competent, basically. It was ruled that could not stand trial at this time. Now, one thing the judge did do was he left it open. If Gregory did happen to become mentally stable, he could then, in fact, be tried for his father's murder. And that's important later on. Gregory spends some time in Norman, and then he's eventually moved to Veneta, which is the more lockdown type unit for a mental hospital. Everyone's kind of in a prison type environment. He's moved down there to Veneta, and that's where he spends the next, from the late 1970s to the mid 1990s. So in the 1990s, the Department of Mental Health is going under a lot of changes, and they aren't holding people in their facilities as long as they had been in the past. And so in this, movement, anybody that probably mentally could be in society, they were, encouraging them to go ahead and move out into society. And which is a very positive and wonderful program. But in this case, this wasn't a very liked thing for the district attorney in Oklahoma County. They found out that Gregory had moved back to the city, I believe, and he was working as a grocery clerk, and he was bagging groceries. So the DA went to Gregory and pretty much said, if you're competent to be out in public, then you're competent to stand trial for your father's murder. And pretty much encouraged him to return yourself to Veneta. And that's exactly what Gregory did. He packed his things, went back to Veneta, and that's where he spent the remainder of his life. In 2014, Gregory passed away of heart complications due to, I guess it was aggravated by his cigarette smoking. But yeah, he ended up died while in state custody. If you go to our Facebook page, facebook.com/Okie Investigations, I will probably have already posted the death certificate, which I found online, along with other information and articles about this case. One of the things I think is crazy about this case is I've never heard of it. At the beginning of the episode, I said I stumbled on this case, which, yeah, I really stumbled on it. I was just doing some research and this one popped up and I was like, well, this is interesting. And it's in the town that I live in now. So that's where it happened, in Midwest City. I grew up in Choctaw, which is like just down the road. And it's kind of hard to believe that something like this could happen and it just, nobody talks about it. Now, let's talk about some of Oklahoma's darker history. Let's step back to 1934. Now, through the course of this story, I want you guys to ask yourselves, can a murderer, a convicted murderer, redeem himself? Is there a possible way in your mind? Can somebody that's committed a heinous murder redeem themselves in your eyes? Might be possible. Let's listen to the story. Now, it's just after Thanksgiving Day, and Phil Kennamer and John Gorrell are driving down the road, and suddenly a scuffle breaks out. And when it's all said and done, Kennamer has killed his friend with 2 shots to the head. Now, what made this such a big crime is that both Kennamer and Gorrell were a part of a society called the High Hat Club. And what they were is a elitist society of Oklahoma's wealthiest kids. Their parents had achieved something great, and they were kind of spoiled and given everything. Phil Kennamer, his father was a prominent judge, a federal judge in Tulsa. John Gorrell's father was a prominent surgeon. Other members in the club included sons of oil tycoons and major businessmen of the time. Now, according to Kennamer's defense, he had to kill Gorrell because Gorrell was going to be going after the woman he loved, Miss Virginia Wilcox. She was the daughter of a major oil tycoon here in Oklahoma, Homer Wilcox. Now, Virginia was no stranger to Kennamer. They had dated a few times. By all accounts, Phil Kennamer was just enamored with her. He was just gaga for this girl. Now, apparently a lot of the kids in this hi-hat club were no strangers to committing some major crimes. They were planning on kidnapping Virginia Wilcox in order to extort some money from her father. Gorrell was the mastermind of this plot, and Kennamer did everything he could, according to his defense anyways, that he tried to steer Gorrell into other directions, different types of extortion, different types of crimes that they could maybe make some money. One of the things that they thought about doing was maybe selling beer and sandwiches, just to kind of like a lemonade stand, I guess, but they were going to kind of do that to earn a little bit extra, some extra money. The other plan was they were going to strong arm a lot of the businesses in the area, get some protection money. Maybe one of the things was they were going to send some wealthy people in Oklahoma a letter stating, that we know how many children you have, and if you would like to protect their lives, send us $20,000. And there was evidence of that. One of the things that they did was they gave the letter to Kennamer to mail, and he never mailed it for whatever reason. But every time one of these plans failed, they ultimately went back to this idea of kidnapping Virginia Wilcox. It was this notion that kept driving Phil Kennamer closer and closer to committing this murder. So finally, just after Thanksgiving 1934, Phil Kennamer has had enough of this. Now, according to this defense, is that this is the point where he has a mental breakdown, and he decides he's going to go to Kansas City, where Gorrell is studying dentistry, and he planned on ending his life. One of the prosecution's major witnesses was Floyd Huff, who said, Kennamer asked me if I knew why he came to Kansas City. I told him I did not, and asked him why. And he said, I came up to kill Gorrell. I looked at the boy and said, you do not believe me. He told me his intentions were to rent an airplane and that they were going to take a ride above the clouds, and when they got up there, he was going to hit Gorrell over the head, and he was going to jump out in a parachute, I guess, and the only way he could have gone is if he intended to live. Now, this was an important statement for the prosecution because in many ways this proved that there was premeditation in this crime. This was not something that was done in the heat of passion or was part of some insane mind's thoughts. But this was completely unlike Kennamer, and they were using these statements as proof that Kennamer had gone insane at this time and had no control over what he was doing. The plot to kill Gorrell was quickly foiled by the fact that there was no airplanes to rent, so that was out the window. So it wasn't long after Kennamer just decided he's just going to go for it. He's going to kill him with a knife. So that night, Kennamer shows up with a knife at the local tavern and pretty much boasts to anybody that would listen that he's looking for Gorrell and he's going to murder him. The other hi-hatters were there. they were able to come over and get the knife away from Kennamer. And Kennamer was reported to have said, "Are you going to send me out there with these bare hands to kill Gorrell?" I said, "Yes, if that's the way you want to go, Phil." And he walked and just left at the tavern at that time. Now, it wasn't long after that Kennamer finally did find Gorrell. They got in a car. As they're driving down the road, Gorrell pulls out a pistol, apparently attempting to kill Kennamer, who has been boasting to everybody he's going to kill him. Kennamer manages to wrestle the pistol away and then shoots Gorrell twice in the head. Now, I honestly don't believe Gorrell brought the pistol into play. I think that this was just Kennamer's, it was his attempt at doing a self-defense kind of play here. I had to kill him because he was going to kill me kind of thing. So this whole trial comes to head. Pretty much the jury had a few options. They could do murder one. They could find him guilty of manslaughter if they believed that the crime was not premeditated. Or they could find him not guilty or not guilty by reason of insanity. The jury in this case didn't believe Kennamer's story, and they found him guilty, but they did not convict him of murder one. What they did was they convicted him of just manslaughter. The judge in this case gave Kennamer 25 years in prison. Now, you might expect, being the son of a prominent federal judge might get you a little bit of leniency, or maybe make it easier to appeal things, but that did not work in Kennamer's case. Now, I asked you at the beginning of the story, can a man who is obviously a murderer redeem himself? Is there a way that he can redeem himself in your eyes where you can say, this man lived a good life, at least maybe for part of it? Well, in 1944, we were in the midst of World War II, and Kennamer was given parole with the stipulation that he join the Army. He got the opportunity, finally, to jump out of airplanes when he jumped with the 13th Airborne, 460th Parachute Artillery Battalion. He died in France on August 14th, 1944. Now, I can't speak for everyone here, but I do feel like somebody that died protecting our country is a hero. And even though he made some questionable decisions in his life, I think as he grew older, he matured and found that there's some things more important than just his life. And yeah, he died for us. Now, does this make up for the fact that he killed Gorrell? No, it doesn't. But what I think it does show is that even somebody who is a murderer can change and do something important with their life. Now, what are your thoughts on this subject? If you'd like to leave me a message, go to anchor.fm/Okie Investigations. Then at the top of the page, you'll see a message button. When you click that, you'll be able to record your own message and tell me, what do you think, one way or the other? Can somebody redeem themselves that's a murderer? Even somebody that has served our country, perhaps? Or perhaps somebody that's done their time and maybe just became a better person? Let me know what you think. You can also connect to us at facebook.com/Okie Investigations. Thank you guys for listening, and I will see you guys next time. See ya.